Welcome to Recovery, everyone. Season 2, the new normal, episode 4. I'm your host, Alan Kapatashungu, and in this episode, I'm very fortunate and excited to speak to someone that I and so many others within the industry consider to be such an outstanding leader. Joan Docktor, I don't know if it's Joan or John, sorry about the pronunciation, President of Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, Fox and Roach Realtor. But first of all, John, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great this morning. It's it's been a wonderful summer, busy,
Awesome.
And the weather's been a little hot, but it's tolerable, and it's great to be able to be out again and out and about again and see people. So it's very good summer.
Agreed. So before we get started, here's a quick bio on John. So as aforementioned, John served as the president of Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, Fox and Roach. John plays an instrumental role there. She's leading 5,000 women and men sales associates, but also 700 employees across 65 sales offices, which must have been really daunting and interesting in the period that we've spent through this COVID protocol that we all went through. So BHHS Fox and Roach is the largest single market brokerage in the U.S., serving Pennsylvania, but also New Jersey and Delaware. And obviously, we have the opportunity to talk to John about all of that. So John, if you are ready, we can get started, and we are really excited to be able to learn a little bit more from you.
I'm excited to be here today and happy to have this discussion. I think it's an important one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for the treat. So the first question, John, to kind of get us started is, could you please walk us through your quote unquote typical day during this unprecedented pandemic, pretty much?
So it hit us like a hard rock, right? One day we were going about our business, and the next day, we were closed. And
absolutely.
And in our market in Pennsylvania, we were totally shut down for 3 months. Wow. It was a stay-at-home order. So that was challenging in and of itself for personal reasons. And New Jersey and Delaware weren't as restrictive. So what happened immediately is that we started to communicate with our leadership, because it's so important to communicate and let people know that it's going to be okay. Now, you may not have in your mind yet what you're going to do, but you have to assure people that you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure it's okay and everyone will be okay. Absolutely. So initially, we were communicating with our sales office managers, our sales office leaders, and asking them to communicate with their agents through Zoom or Google Meets.
Good.
Which they had not been as familiar with as, that has become just a normal occurrence today. Absolutely. But it wasn't back then. So we had to do a little bit of teaching, but we asked them to be on the phone, to use Zoom, to do whatever it was to get their arms around their agents and let them know it would be okay. So that was the first thing that we did. Find out how they are, how are they, how's their mental health?
Yes.
Can they support themselves with, not being able to sell, salespeople depend on that income. And so what would happen? The next thing we did as we thought about it was, how can we continue to train our agents, make them feel positive? What could we do? And so it was, we decided to give a lot of virtual training. How do you do a virtual open house? How do you do a virtual showing? Wow. How do you do a virtual listing presentation? And so we had the tools, and we were able to convert those tools into a virtual presentations. And that was really important, because it kept everybody focused, busy, and preparing, which gives people, when they're doing that and when they're busy, it gives them a positive feeling that they're in control. Being out of control is just an awful thing. So feeling in control is important.
Absolutely.
And so believe it or not, during the beginnings of the pandemic, there were people who were being transferred in, or for whatever reason needed to buy a house. And we had people purchase sight unseen just by virtual. Wow, and so I never had seen that in my life. And then you have the issue of home inspections and all of that. And so that was a bit of a challenge. Some of the agreements said that they wanted to have a physical viewing of the home before they settled, but and we didn't know, if you remember back when,
absolutely,
how long it would be, right? We thought it'd be a few weeks, then it was a month, then it was 2 months,
exactly.
3 months. So I would say that communication and teaching people how to do business in this new world was primary. Keeping in touch with our sales leaders. We had many meetings. We didn't let a week go by without having 2 or 3 meetings just to check in, see how everybody's doing, give some tips. And we advised, lastly, I would say we advised our agents to call their sphere of influence, not about business, but to see how they're doing, to do a check-in, to care about them as a person, because business will flow from that. But right then was not the time to say, I want business. It was the time to say, I care about you. Are you all right? Do you need anything?
Agreed.
So that's kind
powerful.
of it. Yep.
That is really, really awesome. So as yourself, a president of BWHS, Fox, and Roach, like, you kind of touched a little bit on how did you stay on top of not only your realtors, but also your staff, because you have 700 employees as well, and your clients during these uncertain times. Like, how did you manage to balance it all? Not only the agents, but also the staff and the client's needs.
Yeah, so communication is key. We know that.
Absolutely.
You know, making sure everybody understands and knows. So a lot of email, a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of phone calls. Any way we could. We just I began to do video messages every week to all the sales agents and employees, anyone who wanted to listen. And it was it's a 3-minute video. I'm still doing it. And it's kind of turned, at first it was about COVID and how to take care of yourself and your mental health and make sure you have a routine and all of that. But it morphed into more of, you know, if you're new in the business, here's what I suggest.
That is awesome.
You know, what happens? How do you feel when you've been rejected? You don't get a listing. It makes you feel down. How do you get yourself back up? You know, all kinds of things that are business, but also emotional, psychological kind of messages to help people stay engaged. So I do that every week. And we went to all virtual sales leader meetings. Like, we used to have them in person. And so, you know, we've just continued with all virtual at the moment. Hopefully one day we'll go back to in person, but it really saves time. People had to travel an hour and a half sometimes to get to our meetings. So that's 3 hours out of their day. So now they can, and I think we allowed, the other thing I didn't mention, but we allowed people to work from home. We sent everybody home. Day one, we sent all of our employees, you mentioned 750.
Yes.
Sent them all home with their computers and got them set up at home so they could work from home.
Absolutely.
And so we didn't skip a beat. And certain departments had to come in and social distance. That was our accounting department because of our accounting system and things. But for the most part, all the employees went home. Even our sales, our administrators in our sales offices, our sales managers, we were all home. Now, in June, we came back into the sales offices. And so the office administrators came back and we came back, but we're still communicating through Zoom, through Google Meets. We haven't had an in-person meeting yet. So
wow, that's incredible.
And really, some of our employees are going to remain at home because they don't interface with the agents or the public. And they're doing a great job at home. They have kids that they're still watching, you know, and so awesome. we haven't said you have to come back. We're planning as we go forward in our departments that maybe we'll come back 2 days a week so that we can interact, but they can work from home, which I think is a big perk.
Definitely.
They say that 30% of workers say they'd quit if they had to come back full time.
That's a huge number.
Yes.
Wow.
So we want to accommodate our best people. And
absolutely.
So we're going to do that.
That makes sense. I really love the fact that you started with just a simple check-in with the video, and then it became something that kind of grew on its own. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, you know, sometimes I think, you know, my messages will resonate with many, but not all.
Yes,
so they can just turn it off, not listen, right? It's not a topic they want to listen to, but a lot of people say to me, it's a connection. It helps.
Agreed.
I'm connecting, and you're helping me, and
Absolutely,
especially newer people, they really need that.
Completely agree. What is the one thing to you, John, that's the one aspect that was overlooked, and then pretty much just COVID confirmed as an undeniable demand in our industry, that this is something that is going to remain no matter, it doesn't matter if you get back to the office or not. What is that one thing for you that you think that is here to stay pretty much?
The demand for homes, for larger homes, for two offices in a home, the ability to not come to work, so now you can live farther away.
Yes.
I don't think we weren't ready for that. We didn't expect that. The market was good, but the pent-up demand that occurred after, when we could get back out, and the need for the consumer to, have something a little bigger and what have you.
Yes.
Sellers, not having the supply. Supply was tight, but it got so tight. We didn't expect it to get as tight as it was or is. And I think just the consumer demanding online as much as they do. So consumers learned that they could see a home online, and now they don't want to go into every home. They want to pick their favorite and then maybe go see that. But so much was done virtually, even showing the neighborhoods. The consumers got used to that. So now it's not a choice. As an agent, you've got to have that on you've got to have that ability for consumers to see your listings. But the other thing that we didn't expect were the multiple offers in the masses that they've occurred. The pricing, people were willing to go, 20, 30, 50,000, 100,000 over asking.
Oh my God.
In a multiple bid offer. And sometimes there were 30 offers on one house.
Wow.
So we weren't prepared for that. I've never seen that in my whole career. So being able to work through that, and when you have 30 offers, you have 29 very unhappy buyers.
Exactly. That's the way I think.
And agents. Yes. So managing all those feelings and
absolutely.
We ended up training on how to talk to agents when they don't get the offer. How do you keep them in your, so they don't think that you just kind of dismissed their offer. Because a lot of these offers were really good.
Absolutely.
They did not get the house because they didn't put their best foot forward. They put their best foot forward, and they still didn't get the house.
Wow, that's incredible.
So that's been a lesson in human behavior, I think. Yeah, that
is incredible. It just kind of shows how, as you said, the demand is there and the supply a little bit is quite lesser, but it just shows like people are still looking to move, but you don't have that much of an offer as it pertains to what you can propose to them. That's actually our next question, because whether it's what you guys are experiencing there, we're seeing the very same thing here in Europe. So we are seeing a record low housing inventory as well, tipped in sellers' favor. And then I was wondering, you as a leader at BWHS, Fox and Roach, can you tell us a little bit about, you kind of touched on it a little already, but what are you doing to help your agents understand the mindset of potential sellers in this market?
So sellers were not necessarily aware of how their house appreciated. Because of these multiple offers, prices were going up faster than they have in a while. And so I think sellers didn't know how much equity they had in their home.
Agreed.
And they also were concerned that if they would sell, they would have nowhere to go because of the multiple offer situation.
Yes.
So we counseled them that they could possibly rent back.
Okay.
We never would have counseled we don't like that usually, because you don't like to do that. You like the buyer to take the house when they get, when they go to settlement.
Absolutely.
But we counseled them to allow, in offers to let the seller rent back while they looked for a home so they wouldn't be homeless.
Okay.
And that they had this equity, so that they could even go maybe into a rental, have their equity and have this money. And then when the market pares down or slows down a little bit, they would find a home. Okay. We had to counsel buyers that you got to put your best foot forward.
Yes.
Now, people are removing all kinds of contingencies. They're removing inspection.
Wow.
They're removing mortgage contingency. They're moving. They're very, very vulnerable. I wouldn't suggest it, but that's what buyers were doing. And so you had to put your very best foot forward. And people who didn't have cash were they were at a disadvantage. So we have we're a home services company, so we have mortgage, title, insurance, plus brokerage. Our mortgage company, Prosperity Mortgage, offered a pre-approval, not let me just think for a second.
Sure.
It was an actual commitment. It was an actual commitment without the house. So that helped a person who needed a mortgage to be on equal footing with a cash buyer a little bit, right? Because it wasn't just a regular pre-approval, which
absolutely, and
there's lots of things that have to happen, but it was actually the commitment without the home. So that was a buyer advantage program, it was called, and it was a good program. So we used that, and so we help buyers to absolutely put their best foot forward, not to hold back, but also know that they very well might not get the house. It's not in their favor, and that there would be a home for them.
Yes.
And so the pent-up demand was just unbelievable, and you just couldn't satisfy all these buyers.
Absolutely.
And convincing sellers to make a move when there's nothing to buy was a difficult proposition. The other thing we did was we did unsolicited CMAs. So we asked agents to send to neighborhoods or to previous customers an unsolicited CMA, so they could see what the value is, and maybe they would choose to sell now.
Got it. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is continuing on that pretty much same topic, which you touched on a little earlier as well, when you were talking about listing presentation. Like, what are you doing in listing presentation to reassure sellers that they are that your agent are competent, to help them evaluate, as you said, multiple situations, multiple offers with issue like the ones that you touched on, like appraisal gaps and short closing time?
Yeah.
What are you doing on that aspect as well?
Well, in our listing presentation, we address it and we talk about it, as I mentioned. The other thing that we're doing is our sales office managers get involved in multiple offers, especially when the agent themselves have a buyer. So if you're the listing agent, you have a buyer, your manager is going to take over for the seller and help go through.
That's awesome.
One thing I think we did that was really great and is that we have a spreadsheet, and the agent would number the buyer, 1, 2, 3, how many offers, and they would go through various things, the sales price, the mortgage, the, what's included, the settlement date, whatever, have it on a spreadsheet without any names, no identity.
Yes.
So the seller would then look at a spreadsheet of numbers to choose the best offer.
That's awesome.
It might be the highest price. It might be the most down. It might be the settlement date. Yes. We wanted to make sure there was no discrimination.
That's great.
And so we advised our agents to do that with the sellers, and then the sellers make an objective decision on what's the best offer for them.
That is really awesome. I love this. That way of pretty much some kind of a complete anonymity of just the numbers, right?
Yeah.
No distraction as it pertains to anything else around. That's awesome. I love it.
And the other thing, there used to be that a buyer would write like what they called a love letter. Why I'm the right person for the house, or maybe send pictures.
Yes, exactly.
We disallowed that. We said no love letters, no, because you could end up in a discrimination case.
Agreed.
And it was really important to be anonymous. So we did everything we could to make sure that we picked the seller was able to pick the best offer.
I love it. I really love this idea, this implementation that you guys have done. I think it's powerful, and I think it's also fair, which is in a market like this one, you really need at least that aspect as it pertains to fairness, so that it's really just the numbers, and as you said, the ones who are willing to put the best number forward that actually wins and get the home. And I love that. I really love that measure. So this is a more personal question directed towards you. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the lessons that you have learned during this crisis on a personal or business level? What are some of the things that you didn't know about yourself that what happened for the last year and a half pretty much allow you to discover about yourself?
So I have been working since I'm 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
Out of the house, and I've been working. And I would get up in the morning. I would go to work. I was not much of. I kept a neat house, but I wasn't into my house. I traveled a lot. I rarely saw my family.
Oh, wow.
So at first, I was beside myself. And I said to my husband, I've got to get out of here. I can't stay. He said, well, there's nowhere to go. I said, I can't do this. He said, well, what are you going to do? You know, and I was annoyed with him. And he said, it's not my fault. He said, and I said, I was feeling claustrophobic because as time went on, I got very comfortable. And it just shows you how you can, change with the times. Very comfortable being home. And it's not, I was busy from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. on Zoom calls and, busy in my desk in my bedroom. It's just like, here I am. And I'm still here. And I ended up really liking and being at home and nesting a little bit. That's awesome. Not running around and realizing that I could slow down a little bit.
A little bit, exactly.
Still can't totally slow down, but a little bit. And so what I learned personally about myself is that I'm okay without being out and about.
Agreed.
Some of our agents are not. They are really social beings.
Yes. And
I thought I was, but I don't know that they am. And they're really social, and they touch people, hug people.
Yes.
I don't want to hug anybody. It's like, and I really say to myself now, how will I get back to normal and go and travel again and do all of that? I completely agree. Really like my environment here, and it's comfortable, and so that's kind of what I learned about myself personally. I also learned on more of a business level that I needed to really reach out and be there for people, and which I always know. I kind of believe in servant leadership, so I'm there to help and support others.
Absolutely.
And the, being positive and saying we can do this, and really leading the charge and making people feel comfortable with what they're doing and helping them to succeed is something I always did, but it's done a little differently now.
Agreed.
But continue to do that. I mean, we used to have get-togethers where we'd have hundreds of agents come, and I'd do a little speech. We'd have a speaker. We'd hug. We'd have fun, whatever.
Yes.
Having to do that on a Zoom meeting is much more difficult. I learned, at first I thought I had to really animate, and then people say, you're not being yourself. So to try to be yourself when you're talking to all these people is really important, to be authentic. So.
Absolutely. I love it. I really love it. So what are some of the advice as well, John, that you could give to agents starting in the business right now? Like what piece of advice would you give to them?
Well, they've really, it's a self-starting business, as you know.
Yes.
It's a relationship business.
Agreed.
It's a business where you have to reach out. People aren't going to come to you. So you wake up every day unemployed, and you have to go out and create your business. That's how you do that today is a little different, right? Yes. It's a little different. You're not out at meetings. You're not out as much. People are, as much as we say we're open, a lot of people are still not coming out. So you really have to reach people on their level and out to them. Social media is vital. If you can make your whole business explode from social media if you do it.
Agreed. Absolutely.
And you don't have to be a rocket science, but you've got to. And that when I got in the business, there was no social media, so that's very different. but very important.
Agreed.
And I always say to people, think of all the meetings outside that you'd have to have. You can reach on social media so many people all at once.
Absolutely.
Do it right. So be authentic on social media. Find that niche, that's your niche and what you do well.
Yes.
Don't talk about things you don't really know anything about. And even if it's cooking, whatever it is, that's your thing. Don't always be posting about how you're, with buyers and sellers and closing homes. That people don't want to hear that all the time.
Absolutely.
But mix it in. And I think that a new agent has to work really hard. Really, we always had to work hard as because it's a self-starter business, but it's really hard today because people are in so many, there are people on Facebook, there are people on Instagram, there are people on Twitter, there are people on LinkedIn. They're not always everywhere, so you've got to be everywhere.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah. And I would say be really knowledgeable of your market. That's always been important.
Yes.
Learn and study your market. Like, be the expert. Know your stats, because agents don't always pay attention, but know the stats in your marketplace. It's really important.
Absolutely. This one, Joan, wasn't in the question that actually, to full disclosure, that I sent to John earlier, but what I was doing my research, I found that you were talking about servant leadership on LinkedIn, which is something that I deeply believe in. And I'm actually starting to write at least a book on it. And I really wanted to have like your definition of it to you. Like, what does servant leadership mean to you?
So, people sometimes lead because of their title or their position.
Yes, agreed.
And sometimes people end up being leaders because they've served others.
Absolutely.
So from the time I became a manager, I got great joy from my agents succeeding. Yes. And I wanted to serve them so that they could exceed and do unbelievably well.
Yes.
And so it started there. And then as my job grew, I wanted to have our sales office leaders really succeed. So I believe, and through the years, I've had mentorship. I've mentored. I was mentored, and now I'm mentoring, and I mentor at our Forum for Executive Women, which has nothing to do with our company. I mentor our sales managers, our newer sales managers. I have a group that I mentor. I'm happy to mentor agents. I want to make sure to lift them up. And if I lift them up, then they will see me as a leader, right? That's not why I do it, but that happens.
Absolutely.
When I first became a sales manager, and I would watch leaders, and some were very inspirational.
Yes.
Some were not. And I found that those that were inspirational were those that were speaking and helping others. Those that talked about me, and what they know and how great they are. So I aspired these years to be that type of leader that serves others. So I hope that explains it.
Absolutely. That is powerful. It's exactly what I believe a servant leader should be, must be. So that is really awesome. Thanks, John. This week's recovery with the amazing Joan Docktor is now done. You can catch this episode on YouTube as always, and on all platforms streaming podcasts. And remember, in the recovery, don't just get back to the same place, but strive to get to a better place. Thank you, everyone. And John, thank you for the time this morning. This was a treat for me.
Oh, thank you. It's a treat for me. So can I ask you, like, where are you? You're in Europe? Is that where you are?
I'm in Paris currently. Yes, I'm in Paris, France, which is my hometown.
I love Paris. It's my favorite city outside of the U.S.
Awesome.
It was the first place I went when I traveled to Europe. I walked out and saw the angles of the buildings and the architecture, and I just thought it was like amazing.
This is
funny
awesome.
Story. My daughter studied abroad in London, and we went over to see her, and we went to Paris, and my husband went, and he's not much of a traveler, and so he goes to Paris, and we're walking outside of Notre Dame. And
beautiful.
This crazy guy who's tall, he was crazy, had a stick, he comes after my husband with the stick, like chasing him many years ago. And my husband said, I hate Paris. I hate I'm never coming back. That's it. You know, it could have happened anywhere, but it was just like, oh, damn, you know.
I cannot blame him on that one. I cannot blame him.